Let's talk about what it takes to develop and present a winning business proposal. I've seen all kinds of pitches, some top-notch, some total shockers. Over the years, one thing's become clear to me. It's about having the details nailed down. Well, actually, it's also about confidence. It really, to me, is about confidence. It's actually about understanding what a pitch is. It's pretty important to understand who your audience is, and this is a lesson for life. I tell my kids this all the time. So understand who the audience is and confidence. So if what you're looking for from a pitch is to get, you have to understand what happens next. Are you there to get an investment? Like literally nobody gets an investment from a single pitch after 8 minutes. That's just on B-grade TV shows, right? What you need to do is you need to optimize for the next outcome. I want an introduction to your boss, who will then get an introduction to his boss, who's the guy who will pitch for investment. Understand who you're talking to. It's a very valuable life skill. So understand what you're pitching for, optimize towards that. The general pitch for your business should be, if it's a pitch deck, for example, let's say it's the total number of slides in the deck might be 30. You'll probably use no more than 15 in any one pitch, but you'll be able to pick and choose. But always understand, probably in every conversation, what are you optimizing for? What's the purpose of this conversation? And that might sound a bit transactional, and we're obviously talking in a business sense here. So understand what you want from it and what's possible to be attained by the person you're talking to. You can't get blood from a stone. And then, have a very sensible approach to how you have that interaction and how you deliver that pitch. That's the best way to do it. On elevator pitches, look, you need to be very, very confident. What's the confidence? Chin up, chest out, look at people in the eye, speak clearly. You need to be able to deliver that moment. I'm lucky. I've had to do very little pitching in my life, to be honest. I've received a lot of pitches. The 5 key things that should be in a business proposal. What problem are you solving? How big is the market? Why you? Who is your team? And number 5, a lot of this varies as to what exactly the type of business you've got, the type of thing that you're after. We'll average it down to some mythical average business that doesn't exist. Some will say it's about the exit, about how does it, if it's an investor, for example, how do you look at getting a return? I think if you're just starting your businesses, no one really knows that. I think a business proposal or pitch is a well-crafted, well-delivered lie. It doesn't usually survive contact with a customer, but you've got to, I suppose, have enough nous and enough, once again, confidence, and bring people along who are your stakeholders in that plan and that pitch, exactly how you actually take them on that journey. I don't think any business I've invested in that their initial plan or pitch is how they finished ever. Now think about it. My God, they've all had so many pivots and twists and turns. So if you're talking in an investment sense, if you're talking to a sophisticated investor, that's a legal term. If you're talking to an investor who has got some sophistication and has actually been and done this a bit, they understand that. Don't hide that. In general, when it comes to problems with stakeholders, don't ever lie. The problems never get better by hiding them or lying about them. They actually get the opposite. They get worse. And then you've lost your opportunity to actually bring someone genuine on board who might be able to help you because you've lied to them. So look, it's about communication. It's about confidence. No one really expects a business plan to work. To be honest, they all need a little bit, at the least need tweaking. If not, they need some pretty major revisions. You have to be smart enough to know where to adjust. So it's all about when you conduct your business, having enough, what I call telemetry, so getting enough feedback from customers or your systems or your sales processes or whatever it might be in order to deal with that reality. But if you don't deal with that reality will deal with you. I've had lots of pitches where I get halfway through a pitch and I have to, or I'm on some sort of pitch competition or conference or something like that, and you get halfway through a pitch and I find myself forced to put my hand up and say, what is it you do? And because they haven't gotten across in the first half of the pitch, you've got no idea what they do. Now, what an absolutely waste of time for everybody. More important, it's a waste of time for the person delivering the pitch because they're not going to get that time back. So be very clear. It may be very clear in your head. If you're talking to a room full of investors, they probably see 200 deals a month, right? So you need to sort of be able to drill through that. You need to be able to, I suppose, stand out. How do you stand out? How do you be the maybe the 3 or 4 and 200 that stand out to that investor who wants to spend more time on? So, like I said, you make it clear, make it succinct. It's about communication. If people don't know what you're doing, they're not going to invest in you. I've got a bit of a reputation from Shark Tank about numbers and about accounting and about books. And I suppose to a degree that if you're a business pitching an investor for their kid's inheritance, in my case, for example, and you don't know how the numbers work, how the business operates, how you leverage costs to get revenues, et cetera, I've no idea why I should be trusting you. And honestly, the worst answer ever is, I'm not a financial person. Well, that will go nowhere. That's a rubbish answer. If you want to operate a business and you're not very good at books, get good at books. Otherwise, you will go bankrupt. So that's all very, very important there. So in some respects, I think businesses with revenue get a worse time from investors, because you've actually got revenue and you can actually talk. You have revenue, you have expenses, and you can talk about it. So if you have that, the investor's going to want to know about it, because they want to know how much you know about your business, how much you know about the market, how profitable what you're doing is, what have the customers been telling you. Customers talk to you through their wallet. So that's very important. That's just the concept of market economics in general. Knowing your numbers is very important. The reality is that if you know those numbers and you can prove that very early, they'll stop asking. So it's all about how to get the investor not to say no. Their job is to say no. If you're seeing 200 deals a month, they want to say no. They want to see the next deal. They want to find the reason to say no. Don't give them those reasons, and not being financially or at least accounting literate, it's a pretty low-class way to lose a deal. Don't do that. More on pitching. If you're starting a business, and maybe you don't need investors. Good on you. You don't need investors. That's great, because we're not very nice people to work with, to be honest, for the most part of the time. But if you don't need investors, you may need a bank loan. So you'll need to have a very effective pitch to your banker. Bankers tend to be a little more, let's say, old-fashioned. So you might need to go more towards a general business proposal than a pitch. I don't think the banking industry and bank managers are that flexible that they've actually sort of come into the real world yet. But just that probably talks to understanding your audience. I spoke a bit before about sort of modulating your pitch for who you're talking to. But understand your audience. If it's a banker, he probably doesn't want the 7-page pitch deck. He probably does want the silly SWOT analysis and other bits and pieces. So understand that audience is very important. But it's not just that. I mean, and so when you start your business, it's very important to understand that and you're most likely deploying money, and in the business term, that's called capital. So you're deploying capital in order to build that business. Where's that capital come from? It might come from savings, for example, if you've managed to put a nest egg away. That's why I started my first business. It might come from debt. You might be loading up a credit card to do this, which I think think very long and hard about. But plenty of successful businesses have started from fully loaded credit cards, so there is some plausibility to that. And when it comes to presenting, it's not about what you say; it's how you say it. I've sat through hundreds of presentations where great ideas fell flat because the delivery didn't match the ambition. Tailor your pitch to your audience. Don't just recite a script. Connect with your audience. Get them to buy into your vision. And here's another big one. Be ready for feedback. I've seen founders miss out because they probably wouldn't adapt their idea. Don't be that person. Also, you'll get lots of feedback on pitches that's honestly just so wide and varied. Everyone's got a different idea of how you should pitch, what you should include. We used to call it pitch whiplash. You can go from one part to the next. It's your dream. You see something, listen to the advice. Advice is to be listened to, not to blindly acted on. So it's very important to understand, hey, who's giving you the advice? So if someone says, hey, you should modify your thing to do it this way, I think a fair question in that respect is, okay, so what's your background? Probably do it more politely than I would, but what's your background? Why are you giving me that feedback? This person might be a numpty from nowhere, or they could be the biggest business genius out of Silicon Valley. How you interpret their advice will vary widely. So, understanding the background of people who are giving that advice and then how you would act on it is very, very important. I've my best 3 pieces of advice, actually, I've got from, there's a bit of a story here as well about mentors as well, about finding mentors. And mentors can be a really, really useful resource for you. Here's a tip. If a mentor wants to be paid, drop them like a hot spud. They're not worth it. So this mentor, well, I suppose I did pay him. He was our accountant in my first business in Adelaide, and we selected him through a rigorous selection process. He lived closest to our house, but we lucked out with a really good mentor. And whilst we were doing our other business, he gave us lots of advice for free, I suppose. And the first piece of advice, he said, this is all very practical, sort of smaller business stuff. He said, never spend $1 to save 50 cents. So just because something's on sale, and this is typically at tax time, for example, don't buy it if you don't need it. So that was interesting. You know, still do rational things for rational reasons. The next one he said was never use your business as a cash register. For the young people, do they still use cash registers now? No, I hope you do. I think there's cash registers out there. We have this thing called cash. You carry around in wallets and stuff, and you use it to buy goods. A bit different nowadays. So he was referring to the fact that a lot of people, when they, especially if they're in a business partnership of some description, would literally just raid the cash register to go and buy a pie for lunch. So the moral of that story is you treat your business as a standard business. You run a standard set of books. You have revenue, you have expenses, you have a profit and loss. You pay yourself a wage, and if you're an owner of the business, if there's profit left at the end of the day, after tax, you take that profit. Don't just take it off the top out of the cash register. So that talks to accounting hygiene, that talks to business hygiene, and that basically talks to just being a professional business person. And as our business got quite successful over a few years, and it was a little bit past the suburban CPA, the third piece of advice was this business is too big, get a better accountant. So he fired himself, and we're still friends. It was a very friendly firing. But if you find the right person, the right mentor, who'll turn around and say, look, I've stopped, I'm tapped out, I can't help you anymore here. So that taught me a lot about the type of mentor and the type of person you should be seeking to have on your journey. Pick the right mentors.